Welcome everybody to QuickBooks Online Tips and Tricks plus RightTool extension. My name is Hector Garcia. I am going to spend about an hour with you going deep into QuickBooks Online towards the end. And I also want to talk about RightTool, which is an extension, a browser extension that you add to QuickBooks Online that significantly increases your efficiency. There's a whole bunch of built-in tools. And the best thing is it's 100% free extension. So it's going to be super worth it for you to learn about that as well. Let me break down really quick the topic. So first, I'm going to talk about the new UI. So QuickBooks Online changed the UI completely. And I'm going to talk about My Menu for accountants. That's a menu system that's only for accountants that are logged into QuickBooks Online. We'll talk about some of the built-in shortcuts. There's not many of them, but there's some of them, and they're very, very useful. We'll talk about the new Bank Feeds UI. So a lot of accountants are working still with the old UI because they refuse to work under the new UI. The new UI is not just a facelift and change on the way it looks. It also adds a couple of AI-related features, and a lot of accounting professionals kind of bark at that. So we'll talk through them, and some are useful and some not so useful. Then we'll talk about batch editing posted transactions. That's actually not new, but a lot of accounting professionals don't know about it. And once they learn about it, it's kind of a game changer. I'm also going to talk about the new books review experience. Some accountants are already seeing this in their QuickBooks Online. I think that by the end of October, beginning of November, every accountant should have access to the new books review experience. It's really, really powerful. And then I'll talk about the new smart search, and I use smart in quotes. Yeah, just because it is smart, but it's not obviously 100% smart. Obviously, a lot of these new AI things are moving at a pace that they're useful half the times and not so useful the other half of the times. About myself, I run an accounting. I've been running an accounting firm since 2009. I have a YouTube channel, and all the links to that stuff is in the slides. I'm the co-founder of RightTool for QuickBooks Online, an app I'm going to show you at the end of the session. And I'm also the host of Reframe, which is an annual conference, and this year is called Pricing with Confidence. Information about that, it's in there. And there's also my email. So if there's any questions that you have, something I didn't answer, something I wasn't clear, something I didn't cover that you wish I covered, whatever it is, just email me. I'll do my best at giving you information. Let's talk about the new UI and the My Menu. So the first major thing, if you have been using QuickBooks Online, and just for some context, if you don't mind, can you put in the chat if you are a QuickBooks Online user? Just put the word yes. That way I kind of know how many people here have actually seen this and are not seeing this for the very first time. I am going to go pretty fast, and it is going to be pretty advanced, so to speak. So if you have never used QuickBooks Online, there's absolutely no context here in terms of the changes, right? Because I'm going to be focusing mostly on the changes. So the major change that you'll see in QuickBooks Online is this gray silver bar that's in the top and the left-hand side. It wasn't like that before. It used to be just a little left, like a dark left bar in the left of the screen. Now they made what's called a rail. This left thing is called a rail, and this cannot be hidden. Okay, you cannot hide this rail. The top navigation bar by itself cannot be hidden. Both in combination can be hidden. So there's something that QuickBooks has that's called Zen mode or full screen mode. So if you hit Control period or Command period in your keyboard, it makes both the left rail and the top navigation bar go away. Now, not very useful when you're in the home screen like this, but it becomes more useful when you are like in your specific screen that you're working on. For example, if you're in the banking feeds, or if you're in the register, or if you're in a report or something like that. So again, Control period or Command period on the Mac opens and closes the top navigation bar and the rail. Probably the single most important keyboard shortcut. You're going to be using that quite a bit. Also, if you have a custom keyboard, like there's a bunch of custom keyboards you can buy. Like I have this little $40 custom keyboard I bought in Amazon. You can map custom shortcuts to the custom keyboard. So you don't have to remember, the combination, Control this, Alt this, all that stuff. You can just use a custom keyboard and map any particular shortcuts you want for any app. So I recommend that for QuickBooks Online. Okay. The other really important things is the way that they did the left navigation bar. So the left navigation bar is there's actually three types. One is the My Apps. So one major thing that QuickBooks Online has done through the changes that they introduced this summer, and most people should be on this screen now, is that the different areas of QuickBooks, the different sections of QuickBooks, the different modules of QuickBooks, whatever term you want to use, they're now calling apps. And apps used to be a term that was used for integrated applications, like third-party applications like Bill.com or other add-on software like Fishbowl Inventory or a payroll app like OnPay or ADP. They used to call those apps. They no longer call them apps. Now they call those integrations. And now whatever QuickBooks offers that's modular, it's now called an app. Now on the top right of the screen, you're going to see a little icon that looks like two boxes connected. That's now the new integrations area. So if you want to see what apps, for the lack of a better term, are connected into your QuickBooks, and if there's a connection problem or whatever, you can see them right there on that little icon on the top right. So the My Apps on the left-hand side is actually modules or sections inside QuickBooks. So once you click on My Apps, this left navigation bar opens, and it's a combined. You have the left rail here, and you have the left navigation bar here. If I hit Command period or Control period, it hides everything, including the left navigation bar. So kind of keep that in mind. There's no built-in keyboard shortcut for collapsing the left navigation bar. You would have to click on what they call the hamburger icon, which is those three little lines, okay? But if you are in the dashboard, you don't see the three little lines because they don't enable the left navigation bar from the dashboard. So you have to first click on My Apps to get that left navigation bar, and then you can click on the hamburger icon to open and close it. That's a major navigational change that they made, okay? Now, as you can click on the headers, and you can collapse and expand all these major sections. So all these headers or categories of apps, they have an icon next to it. And then if you click on them, just it opens and closes. And then the ones that don't have an icon next to it, those are now the specific screens or the specific modules inside QuickBooks. So the most common screen that we go to is bank transactions. So you would click on apps, then accounting, then apps transaction on bank transactions, and then you get into the banking feeds, which is the most common area inside QuickBooks. Now from here, it's worth it to do the Control plus or Command plus button, right? Because then you can collapse that, and now you can be sort of in full screen. Now a lot of people are in the old version. You can still switch back to the old version of banking, and you can still go back and forth, switch back to the old version, and this is what the old version looks like. And the old version is really good, very efficient. So I won't take that away. But a lot of people, want to already get used to what the new thing is going to be, which is going to be this new UI. And keep in mind that the old version or the previous version is going to get phased out eventually. So at some point in time, you have to know how to use the new version. Okay. All right, let's go. I'm going to go back into the slides just to make sure I'm following through. So I'm gonna finish, and I'm gonna talk about the My Menu, and then we're gonna go back into banking feeds because I know a lot of people want to learn about the new banking feeds. So I'm gonna go back into the home screen, onto the dashboard, okay? And then what QuickBooks has done is that they created a fully customizable menu for accountants to customize their experience in that specific QuickBooks file. It's called My Menu. So when you click on My Menu, you're now going to see a collapsible navigation bar that can be open and closed, but this one can be customized. While My Apps cannot be customized, this one can be customized. And I did mention that there's three types of menus. There is My Apps, which I've shown already. There's My Menu, which I'm about to go pretty deep into. And then there's Reports. QuickBooks has removed reports from the regular menu system. So a lot of people go into My Apps and then they're looking for reports in here and they can't find them. Reports has now been separated into its own menu. So you're gonna have My Apps, you're gonna have Reports, and then you're gonna have My Menu. So let's talk about My Menu. So the really cool thing about My Menu is that you can click on this little settings button or the customize button, and then you click on that, and then it gives you 4 areas. There's sections, bookmarks, create, and tools. Okay, so let me start by, I'm going to turn off all the sections here, and I'll just leave bookmarks open and click save. So essentially what happens is my menu will only consist of bookmarks. If I click on that customize and turn off bookmarks and click on create, and then I click on save, then now my menu only consists of the create category. Same thing if I turn off create and turn on tools and click on save, then my menu only has tools. Now I'll break down what all three mean. So I'm going to turn all three, and also I can change the order. So if I want create first, tools second, bookmarks first, that can happen. So I can click on save. So now I should have my three sections: create, tools, and bookmark. Now under create, I'm going to start with that. So let's customize that, and then I'm going to go over to create. Now under create, you can choose what transactions you want to quickly create. Now in contrast, QuickBooks already has a create menu. This is a little plus button here with the inside of a circle. And when you click on that, you get this huge menu that has about 20, 25 options. Okay, so sometimes there's like 4 transactions that I always create, and I don't want to click on create and go all the way to the right to find something, and then click on create and go all the way to the left to find something else. So that's actually very common that people say, you know what, that menu is way too big. I wish I had just like 4 things that I always create readily available. So if that's the case, then you customize that create button. You can turn everything off and then just turn on the things you create. So let's say that things that I always create are an expense. Let's see if we have an expense here. Let's say the other thing I do create a lot is a deposit. Let me type here deposit, bank deposit. And let's say the other thing I create a lot is, let's say, a check. So let's search each one. Let's go in check, turn that on. Let's go into deposit, turn that on, and let's go into expense and turn that on. And I will add journal entries. Okay, so it's just 4 things that I turned on. So I click on save. Let me just make sure that I turn them all on. I think I clicked check too quickly. So let's go into expense. Let's go into deposit, bank deposit, and check. And click OK. So now it will stick. There we go. So there's my 4 things that I always create. So if you usually do those 4 things, and you are in the dashboard, for example, you click on my menu, and then it's right there. The 4 things I create the most are right there. Now, this is not across all your clients. This is only for this specific company. So you actually have to create a completely customizable navigational experience for each of the companies. If you want to have a consistent navigation experience across all your companies, that's where you need an app like RightTool, which we'll talk about towards the end. But these can be customized and can be set up, and it's all included in QuickBooks. But you have to set it up for each company, each of your clients, so to speak. So there's my create button. I can collapse that. Now let's look at the tools menu. So I'm going to go into customize. I'm going to go into tools, and there's all the different things that I can turn off and on. So let's say the only thing I use here is new window, and I'll bring this all the way to the top. Let's say I use reclassify transactions, and let's say I use notes. These are the 3 things that I use, and everything here I tend not to use, so I don't want to have it in there. So then I click on save, and then I have my 3 tools: new window, reclassify, and notes. So anything that I click in here, it'll take me straight there. So here's my totally customizable experience. The last one is bookmarks, and that one's actually a bit more complex to discuss because it's actually in 2 places. It's in the my menu, and it's also surface outside. So you can uncheck any of the things that are here, and you can search almost every area of QuickBooks. So for example, in my bookmarks, I want to see invoices. I also want to see, let's say, bills. I also want to see, let's say, projects. And I also want to see, let's say, payroll or something like that. Okay, or payroll overview right here. Okay, and then I click on save. So basically, under my bookmarks, and there's a little tiny little bug here that when you search, when you do a search and a filter, that they clear out. This is something that they need to fix. So let's see. So it's bills, it was vendors, it was invoices, and they're not in alphabetical order, and there's a specific reason for that. And the reason they're not in order is because you can change the order on them. So once you have the order that you want. You have all the transactions that you want. Let's say I want to bring customers. Let's say we have payroll, taxes, whatever it is. Then I can come in here and I can change the orders. I want to see customers first, vendors second, let's say bills third, payroll overview, payroll, taxes. Okay, and then I click on save. So there's my bookmarks. Again, bookmarks is the third category in my menu. Now, if I am not in my menu, I also have a fixed bookmarks menu in the left rail. So for example, let's say my menu is not open. I'm sitting here in the home screen. I got my, I'm gonna refresh and go back into the home screen here. And let's say I'm sitting on home screen. I don't have my menu open. I click on bookmarks. Those bookmarks are there. Okay, so the bookmarks are both in the bookmark section, and you can click on this little pencil icon and you can edit the same way that I edit them. Okay, I can have them there, and I can also rearrange them from this screen too. That's why I say they're a little bit more complex to explain, because it can be seen in both places, and for some strange reason the interfaces are just not designed the same. So it's like, wait, am I on the same screen? So it gets a little bit confusing. So I'm going to click on save. So this bookmarks menu here. And then if I go into my menu and I click on the customize button and go to bookmarks, it's the same thing. So it's just a tiny different UI experience, but it's the same thing. It can be edited from the my menu and it can be edited from the bookmarks. The difference is this bookmark section is only available for accounting professionals, where this bookmark section is available for all users, even non-accountants that are logged in. The other thing that's really interesting about bookmarks is whichever screen you're in. So let's say, for example, I'm in the project screen, and then I'm thinking, I like this screen. I want to bookmark this screen. You go into bookmarks and then click on bookmark current page, and then you click on save. So you don't have to search it through the regular search screen. You can just do it, based on the screen that you're in. Okay, let's say, for example, I'm in some other screen. So I'm just going to navigate into fixed assets, for example. So I'm in the fixed assets screen, and I'm like, you know what? I really want to see this in my bookmark. So you just click on bookmarks and click on bookmark current page and click on save. The other interesting thing about bookmarks is that if you go into the My Apps section here, and you have the My Apps menu, and you're looking at any particular screen that you like, let's say, for example, this invoices screen, I can click on that little bookmark icon next to it, and I click on that, and that adds it automatically into the bookmark. Okay, and then if I want to change the order of that, I click on the pencil, and then I can bring this all the way to the top. Either I want to see that first, and then click on save, and then so all of a sudden when I go into my bookmarks, now invoices shows in there, and I can also rename it, right? So I can call it invoice screen, okay, or something like that, or maybe I can call it all invoices, whatever I want. I can give it whatever name I want, and that's the name, the official name that shows up in the bookmarks menu. So that's the my menu. That's probably the single most important thing. So if you have been using the new version of QuickBooks Online and you have been a little bit frustrated about all the changes, I think once you master my menu, you will definitely enjoy it a little bit more. Okay, let's talk about built-in keyboard shortcuts. So QuickBooks does have a set of built-in keyboard shortcuts. So what you do is, doesn't matter which screen you're in. So I always default to the dashboard here. But whatever screen you're in, you hit Control Alt question mark or Control Option question mark, and if you're in the Mac, and it opens up this additional informations pop-up. This is like a little cheat sheet. This cheat sheet lets you know what combination of keys, if you hit Control Alt and that key, or Control Option and that key, if you're in a Mac, and these buttons, it takes you to those different areas. So for example, Control Alt A takes you to the chart of accounts. Control Alt V takes you to vendors. So we'll try this to Control Alt A goes to the chart of accounts, so you don't have to click on it. Control Alt V goes into the vendors. Control Alt L takes you to the lists menu, where you can see multiple lists like classes, chart of accounts, terms, locations, tags, custom fields, etc., etc. So Control Alt question mark opens up the pop-up, so you know what that looks like. You can also create transactions with this keyboard shortcut. So we have Control Alt I for invoices, Control Alt W for check, Control Alt X for expense. That actually mimics QuickBooks Desktop. So Control Alt X opens up the expense screen. Control Alt I opens up the invoice Okay, Control Alt W opens up the check. Now you notice how I quickly close those screens. So those new transaction screens, the one that have a big X here on the top right, you press Escape and it closes out of that. So you kind of keep that in mind. Okay. In here, it also tells you about the Control plus or the Command plus that we talked about, the full screen and the left mode. And then the global search is actually a really important one to discuss because search is very common. So that's Control Alt F. And what that does is it moves your cursor all the way to the top and it allows you to start typing immediately. So that's actually really, really valuable. And if you use dictation, which I do, you can actually start dictating your search, which makes it even more useful. So I do a lot of, I turn on dictation on my computer. So when I do a shortcut like Control Alt F, then I turn on dictation, and then I can say expenses more than $100 or something like that. And then I'm going to go back into the smart search in a second and kind of talk about what terms work in here. So we'll go back into that fairly quickly. So I just wanted to kind of cover those built-in shortcuts that are there. And when we talk about RightTool at the end, we actually expanded that set of shortcuts. So you could do a lot more stuff with keyboard shortcuts. Okay, let's talk about the new banking UI. Okay, so that's actually one of the major areas of concern for a lot of accounting professionals that are used to a particular workflow on entering transactions and using their bank feeds, and they're worried that they're going to change the old way in which they used to enter data. And that is true. You have to get ready for this new screen. So I'm gonna walk you through it. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna full screen. So Control plus to full screen. Then I'm gonna practice Control plus and Control minus, so I can zoom in and zoom out based on what I'm most comfortable with, right? So I have a 27-inch 5K monitor. I could probably go pretty small. You at the webinar level, you probably can't read at this point, right? So you're gonna zoom in until you're in the single most comfortable spot. The more you zoom out, the better, because you can see more columns. So I'm gonna talk about the additional columns now. So here on the little gear menu, on the small gear menu on top of the transactions table, when you click on that, you get to choose which columns you want to see. Obviously, the more columns you put, the more crowded this space is going to be. So make sure you don't turn on the things that you don't need to work on. So for example, I'm going to turn on files. That's for attachments. I'm going to turn on classes, turn on locations, and maybe turn on custom. Okay. So what that's going to crowd up this screen a little bit more. Obviously, the challenge here is that some of these things that I have, they get cut off, right? So a lot of the vendor names, a lot of the customer names, the project names, they can get cut off. And that's just natural. It's just because I added way too many things. This is where you're going to have to zoom out and most likely invest in a higher resolution or bigger monitor to be able to see more. That's just the challenge that we have when we add a lot of columns. You just have to keep that in mind. So zooming in, zooming out, doing full screen mode, that's useful. I mean, if you're not in full screen mode, that's even harder. And you have to do what's called vertical scrolling, which drives me crazy, right? This vertical scrolling thing drives me completely nuts. That's why the full screen is really valuable. And again, I try to zoom in to a point where there's no vertical scrolling. So if I zoom in or zoom out to a point where there's no vertical scrolling, that usually is the best, in my opinion, the best possible way that you can work with. Okay. The other things that are important to point out here is that you can sort almost any column. So I can sort by date. I can sort by bank description. I can sort by vendor name. I can sort by class. I can sort by almost every column that's here. But even better, even more powerful than sorting, I like grouping. So when you click on this little gear menu, there's an option here that says group and sort by column. So once you group, it sorts again. So I'm going to click on group and sort by column. And what that does is anything that I click on, it will automatically be grouped. So if I click on bank description, what it's going to do is going to find all the vendors or all the payees in common and group them together. Okay, so for example, you see all these American Airlines. These are all grouped together. You see all these Anthony's. These are grouped together. You see all these AT&T bill payments. They are grouped together. Okay, and there's a huge benefit to grouping them together because Once you group them together, you can categorize them in batch. Probably my favorite thing to do in bank feeds, especially when I'm doing a whole year's worth of transactions or something like that. So the way you can batch categorize all these is you click on the little select all box right next to grouping. So I click on that, and then that selects, all the 10 transactions that are here. Then I have a couple options here. I can post, which means put them into QuickBooks with whatever bill, with whatever vendor name or category QuickBooks suggested, which I usually don't recommend. There's edit for you to then set that payee and that category. And there's exclude if for whatever reason the transaction is duplicate, or you already entered it, or the banks have already been reconciled and they're showing up here and they're not supposed to show here. You click on exclude and you get them out of bank feed. So I'm going to click on edit, and then I get to change all the fields that I want. So right now I'm going to change the payee name. So I'm going to put AT&T. So there's my AT&T. Then our account, let me see if I have a telephone account. There's my telephone expense. Then under class, let's say, for example, I do have a class, right, that I want to class them to, or a location. Okay, and then if I want to job cost it to a particular project, I can do that. Mark it billable or not, so that's up to you. And then you have two choices. You have apply and apply and post. What apply does is that it categorizes them but leaves them in banking. So if you want to just kind of apply a whole bunch, look at it, decide to post later, you can do that. Or apply and post removes them from banking completely because it puts them into the books. So I'm just going to click apply so you see it. So once I click apply, everything got applied, right? The vendor name, the class, location, the project, and the expense transaction. So the expense categories, everything was put in there. So by doing that, you get to now pick and choose. So for example, you're like, you know what? This particular one is actually a different class, and this particular one is a different location, and this particular one is going to be a business gift, and this particular, you see what I'm saying? So you can apply a whole bunch, so they get added, and then kind of like with the fine comb, you can change anything that you want particular, and then you can pick and choose which ones to post one at a time. So I can click on post and just post one of them. Okay, I can click on post and just post one of them, or I can again do my select all again and then post, because I have already categorized them. I've already changed whatever I'm going to change, and then I can post it. So incredibly powerful feature, especially when you use in combination like that. Let's pick another grouping here. Let's grab all these Comcast. Okay, so we're going to do select all. I'm going to click on edit. I'm going to put my vendor name. So let's say my Comcast vendor name, and the category in this case, let's say is, do I have internet or something like that? Internet and TV services. Let's say there's no class, location, or customer job. I click on apply and post, and then all those transactions will automatically be added into my books with that category and be removed from bank feeds. Now, let's say, for example, that all these Costco ones, I've already entered those and I don't want to see them. I can just select all of them and then click on exclude. Okay. And then when I click on exclude, it doesn't delete them from my books because it's never been posted in my books, or they're duplicates from already posting. It removes it from banking, from this sort of purgatory pending list. But anything that I move from pending to excluded, I can click on excluded and I can see them in there. So if I click on if I just search for Costco, you're going to see the 3 Costco transactions that I moved to excluded. Now, if you made a mistake and they need to go back into banking, you can just undo one by one, or select all of them and undo all of them. So you can send it from excluded back into banking so you can categorize it. Or you know what? I never want to see these again. They're bothering me. I just click on delete, and then it removes them completely from my visibility. They're not in banking. They're not in excluded. They're gone, 100% gone. Okay, so let's go back into pending here. You can also group these by date. Okay, so if I go click on date, in this case, I'll group them by month. That's exactly what it would do. Okay, and then I can click on collapse all groupings here, and then none of the transaction details will show up. You're just going to see the categories. So if you kind of want to work with one at a time, you can just pick the one you want to work with and open this up, and then you can work through that month first, categorize that month, and then you can go to the next month. So you have multiple ways you can organize it. You can also group it by spent or received. So basically it creates two groupings, your money in and your money out grouping. So if I collapse them, there's only two. So if you want to work just in deposits coming in first, and then you want to work in expenses afterwards, you can do that. So you have total flexibility in how you can do that. Okay. All right. So that's the new banking. There's something else peculiar about the new banking, which is the artificial intelligence suggestion. So I want to walk you through those. So as you see transactions you downloaded through the bank, you might see a little what they call gems. It's like a little star, like a little bunch of little stars next to it. Anything that has a little gems next to it, that is QuickBooks suggesting a category for you. So it's not using history, it's not using a rule, it's using strictly AI. So if we look at this transaction, Google AdWords, and I open it up, and you see that it had that little icon in it, and now it opens up this box here. Okay, so I'm gonna scroll up a little, you see a little better. It opens up this box. This is what they're called the AI suggestions, or their accounting agent is what they're calling it. So the suggestion for this vendor called Google Ads, okay, Google AdWords, is suggesting that you pick a category called advertising, promotion, web-based, pay-per-clicks. Why is it doing that? It's because it's reading the description of the account. It knows who the vendor is and says, look, it looks like for the most part, this is probably the best category to use. So it's using artificial intelligence to suggest categorization to you. And then it gives me actually multiple options. So one of them is this first one, but then there's a couple of others. So then you can pick, if from the top three that it suggests, you can pick the one that's best for you. So if you do nothing, it already picked that category for you. If you want to pick a different category, you click here, it says select category, and then it changes that for you in the account section. So it still keeps the top three suggestions, but allows you to quickly change from the different things that it suggests. Sometimes QuickBooks does a great job, right? It actually nailed it. Like Google Ads, pay-per-click campaigns, it nailed it. There's other places where it doesn't do so well. So I'm going to post this one. Okay, and let's look at a category where maybe it's way off. And you will see this will happen more often than not. So let's see. And it's getting better and better. So Verizon is suggesting internet and TV services. Okay, PayPal. Okay, this is good, kind of a good example. So there's a transfer to PayPal, and depending on the context, right? So if I don't have a PayPal account and I'm paying somebody else that has PayPal, that's an expense of sorts. But if I have a PayPal bank account and I'm moving money from bank account Chase to bank account PayPal, that shouldn't be an expense category. That should be a transfer to another balance sheet account. So in this case, it didn't suggest that. It suggested using general business expenses. Now, I think it's kind of a cop-out. I can program a piece of software that suggests everything to general business expenses and kind of never be wrong, right? Because everything is general business expenses. But this is a good example where maybe it's not, such a good suggestion, especially when the actual memo says transfer to PayPal. It doesn't say, merchant ABC being paid via PayPal. It says transfer to PayPal. So very strangely, in this one, it didn't do such a good job. And you would say, well, Hector, what if you don't have a PayPal account in your chart of accounts? Well, I have I have at least 3 bank accounts with the word PayPal in my chart of accounts. So not true. So again, just it's not perfect, right? It's not the end all be all. I think everybody has their own opinion in terms of whether they trust AI or not, or whatever it is. And I think it matters, that it's accurate for accountants, but it doesn't matter so much for end users. End users are going to trust this, and they're just going to pick whatever it tells you, which in many ways is kind of job security for us. The other really cool thing that this does is this allows you to click and drag onto any of these transactions, and you can drop and add an attachment. So if you have receipts in a folder somewhere, you can just click and drag them in there, and it uploads them. It's really, really cool being able to do that. so you can add your attachment. So you don't have to open one by one. You can simply just click and drag. If you're not a click and drag person, you can click on that plus icon, and that plus icon allows you to grab, whatever thing you want to upload, and you upload it into it, your attachment, your receipts, whatever it is. So that allows you to do that, and then it shows a little one there, letting you know that there's one attachment associated with it. If you click on that one, you get a little drop-down menu where I can click on that, and then I can see, it was a picture, right, that I uploaded, but generally it would be like a receipt or something like that. And you can delete it, or you can add more if you want to. If you want to add more files to attach, and then only supports PDF, JPEG, pictures like that. So that was a weird file I had uploaded, but as long as it's just a picture or a PDF, you should be fine attaching that. So something I really like, I recently kind of fixed that feature. Now here on the gear menu, the other thing that's really important is this little checkbox that says show full bank description, and also copy full bank description to memo. These two things I suggest that we always have turned on, and there's a specific reason for that. Also, alternate row color, if I turn that off, it just looks just white. If I turn that on, it has that gray. Only thing that's kind of weird is it's a little bit slow when you scroll up and down, because it has a little bit of a gray refresh. It's a little bit faster on the scroll when you don't turn on the alternate rows, but it's not noticeable enough where it matters. I think the visibility of the alternate rows, it's a lot more useful. So when you don't click on show full bank details, what happens is QuickBooks changes the words or the vendor names, and that's a challenge for me. Like, for example, I want you to focus on this one. So we have Office Depot Boca Raton. Okay, now do I really need to know the city in which I went to Office Depot? Probably not, but sometimes the context matters. For example, I have a client that when they go to Home Depot A or Home Depot B, it has different context, right? If the Home Depot is really close to their office, it could be any job. If the Home Depot is the one in Miami or the one in Boca, it's for the job that's specifically in Boca. So sometimes having the name of the city or having that extra text is valuable. When you don't click on show full bank descriptions, QuickBooks, in an effort to clean things up for you, it does a good job at cleaning things up. For example, this one, that's hotel booking hotel. This is booking.com. Okay, hotel at booking.com. It changes it just to hotel. Okay, in most cases, we'll just put their travel or whatever, but sometimes I may need to know the context. For example, this one says Chelsea. Well, who the heck is Chelsea? Okay, I don't know who Chelsea is. Oh, the real description is Chelsea Football Club. Changes everything, right? So I am not a huge fan of this not having show bank descriptions, because QuickBooks changes the text. So I always want to have that checked, so it brings that the real data that comes from the bank. So that's an extremely important piece for me. Now keep in mind that even if you have it off, when you actually click on it, you get to see the full bank. You still get to see the full bank description. So it doesn't hide it from you completely, but at least on this table, it hides it from you. So I much prefer to see the actual real bank information versus whatever QuickBooks decided wanted to call it. And sometimes we'll get things like really wrong. Like, for example, exchange. Exchange doesn't mean anything, right? But then when I open it, it's UHC exchange. Okay, that's United Healthcare. Okay, so the word exchange by itself means nothing. So that's why I'm just very, very hesitant on this, cleaned up version of the bank feed. Now, I want the full bank description to always be copied as a sort of security measure into the memo. That way, if you categorize the transaction and forget to put a vendor name, and then you're looking at the transaction in the report, you at least have that memo as a backup. The memo will always be the original bank text. So in order to make sure that memo comes into banking, you have to turn on this copy full bank description to memo. If you have this off, the memo comes in blank. So I'll click out it, click it. The memo comes in blank, and then if you choose the wrong category, or let's say the wrong category, but the wrong payee is a better example. So let's say I picked the right category but the wrong payee. So this one's Aqualina Western, and I'm choosing 100 montaditos. So when I click on post and I look at that transaction, okay, so I'm gonna just gonna look at my search here and then look at the transaction. When I look at the transaction says the vendor is 100 montaditos, and I don't have in the memo section, I don't have the original bank text. I do have it in the description. The problem is that this doesn't show up in some reports. So missing that from the memo, it's kind of a problem for me. So I kind of want to make sure that this original bank detail translates into the banking, just in case I want to see it in a report or want to make sure the transaction was categorized correctly. So you want to have that in the little gear menu. Always make sure, is probably the most important tip. Make sure you have copy full bank description to memo. And again, I prefer show full bank description. So I want to talk about batch editing posted transactions. Okay. So once you post transactions inside QuickBooks using bank feeds, you click here where it says posted. And then these are all the transactions that were downloaded through the bank that have already been posted in QuickBooks. What I love about this is if you make a mistake, you can batch edit things that were posted after the fact. And you can filter them based on the potential error that you made. So for example, I want to see all the transactions that are missing a payee. So I click on that little filter, and then it shows me everything that I posted that's missing a payee, right? And then from here, I can sort these by description, and then I can grab, these two things are supposed to be personal expenses. So I click on one. They already are in personal expenses, which is fine. Okay, I don't have to change that. But I can click on edit, and then I can change the vendor name. It's called Beatles Loves. So as you can tell, I connect some of my personal credit cards to these demos, so I know exactly what I'm spending money on. So I create my vendor on the fly there, and I don't have to change the account because it's already been categorized correctly. Click on apply and post, and basically changes the things that were posted after the fact. Super powerful, and I love this filter, so I can see what was categorized via rules. And I didn't cover rules. That's probably going to be a whole section we can discuss. Rules are a whole really powerful thing. So what was categorized via rules? What was categorized without rules? So that filtering gives you context in terms of knowing, what I could be doing. What was put into the uncategorized expense accounts? The QuickBooks has an uncategorized expense, an uncategorized income, an uncategorized asset. So anything that was under uncategorized, I can filter those. So maybe I want to batch edit those, right? Because I don't want this is like QuickBooks' version of a miscellaneous account. So if I want to uncategorize those, let's say for example, all these Adobe were uncategorized wrong. So I go shift click all these, click on edit, and then this is supposed to be software and subscriptions or something like that. And then the vendor supposed to be okay. Click on apply and post, and boom, in one shot I can fix things again that were posted to the wrong class, to the wrong location, to the wrong account, to the wrong payee. So I absolutely love this area. And you can filter. You can say, let me look at everything that was put on the business meals account. Okay, so I go into my business meals, and then click on apply, and then I get to kind of see, okay, what's everything in the business meals account? Okay, and then I can take a look at one of these and go, this one's actually personal. So I just come in here and change that one. Okay, so so it just gives me that power, and I don't have to click post or save or anything like that. I just, from here, I can nitpick at any of the things that are here. So it's almost like digging through like you're with reports and quickly categorizing it, but this is all within the context of bank fee. Now, these are done account by account. So these are the transactions that were in this credit card account. And then these are the transactions in this credit card account. So this is not categorizing all of your transactions across the board. This is categorizing the transactions that were posted in that particular bank account. Again, it could be useful. It could be contextual. However, really good news is QuickBooks recently changed updated, just to say that, updated the new books review section. So if you're logged in as an accountant and you go into books review, you're going to see a button on the top right that says try new experience. Now the key is you have to be in the new banking experience, the one that just showed you, in order to be able to enable the new books review experience. And it goes hand in hand because they use similar tools, so to speak. So with this new bank books review experience, you can batch edit across multiple bank accounts, and you can batch edit even things that were not entered through bank feeds. So it actually works very similar to the batch editor inside QuickBooks. So for example, I select these are my uncategorized transactions. These are transactions that were booked into an uncategorized account. I see here the source account, so this is under my BOA replacement account. Okay, I can see the description, I can see the type of transaction, I can see the class, the location. Again, I'm gonna zoom this in here because I like full screen here, and I can zoom out a little bit. So I can read the description, I can read the payee, and I can see anything that might require a recategorization, right? So I can select a whole bunch of transactions here. Okay, I can click on edit, and then I want to change this to transportation. Okay, let's say the payee is fine, but then I want to put this into one of my locations. Let's say I want to put the New York office, and then I want to put it into my commercial class. I click on apply, and again, across the board, transactions that fit this category, right? This grouping category, doesn't matter which source account you use, doesn't matter where you entered it, it shows up in here. Now, in the books review is an interesting place because in here there's a little checkbox here where you can remove them from books review. Basically, I don't want to be bothered with them anymore. So I just click on each of these, and then you know what? These don't need to be reviewed. I already reviewed them. They're okay. So as I click them, it removes them from the screen. Okay, and that's eventually what it does. Now there's a filtering section here that has the to do, has all, and then it has the ones that are marked as resolved. So the ones that have this little checkbox, they're resolved. So basically what that means is I don't need to review them anymore. And what's important and relevant about the books review is that QuickBooks tries to, in a smart way, so to speak, tries to organize the transactions you need to review based on different feedback from different accountants. So for example, things categorized into uncategorized, that's an important one. Or maybe transactions are missing payees. That could be an important one, right? Let's say, for example, I do last year, and I look at anything that's missing a payee, so it'll show me that. So I guess there isn't any, or any on the to-do section. And then I have transactions greater than 2,500, right? Because they could be a fixed asset of sorts. So I get to see those. Let's see, unclear transactions on or before the last month, right? So if you have any transactions that are sitting in my books and they're uncleared, you can look at them here. Now there's one little flaw that this has is generally unclear transactions, we delete them. We don't reclassify them. So there actually isn't a delete button. There's only a reclassify button, but they're getting there. Again, this is the new section. Expenses are missing a customer project, right? So if there are things that they could have a customer project. Let's say you have a construction client, so you can quickly reclassify those there. Okay, so they're getting really smart about these general grouping or categorization. And then if you don't do any of these, you can click on add and remove checks, and then you can say, you know what? The only ones I really work on are transactions greater than, and let's say unclear transactions and uncategorized. And then I click on save, and then it only queues up the 3 to do. And then you can actually close up everything here. You can just click on done, and then it marks this whole category, this whole section done, mark this done. So there's something kind of similar in the QuickBooks Desktop called the Client Data Review, but I don't think it's as powerful at the batch editing as this has. Client Data Review in Desktop does allow you to kind of go through a list of things you can fix and adjust, but batch editing transactions, the way this lets you do it, that's not available in Desktop. This is going to be one of the most powerful tools in the QuickBooks Online ecosystem once they finish adding all the moving parts. And what's also pretty neat here is that there's a exclusions and inclusions button. So if I click on exclusions, I can say, you know what? Show me everything but, let's say everything but bills, okay? Or everything but bills and deposits. And I click on save, and then it only shows me those type of transactions, right? Oh, sorry, if I'm going to select all, and let's say let's do only expenses. So show me everything but expenses. So last year. Okay. So that shows me that. So these exclusions are really, really useful. Because of that, I can also say, show me all the vendors except this vendor and that vendor and that vendor and that vendor. And then we click apply, and then it narrows down. So it allows you to use this inclusion and exclusions tools. And I only want to see a particular set of accounts, a particular set of categories. So you have all this control for batch editing transactions. So I think this books review is incredibly powerful. And again, you got batch editing, posted transactions from bank feeds, and then you have the new books review experience. These two things in combination allow you to do a lot of cleanup in batch. Last thing I want to show you is the smart search. So what QuickBooks did is, and I'm not a huge fan of it, but what they did is they have a single search that searches through the help menu and also through transactions. So I'm not a huge fan. For example, if you were to do something super logical, like put $100 and you press enter, you would assume that this would go into a search where it will only look for transactions of $100. Well, it's not that smart, okay? Because you would think that's smart, okay? But you kind of have to know what the tricks are, right? So if I put equals $100 and then I press enter, then it's actually not equals. I forgot what it is. I think I have the word equals. I have to literally write the word equals $100, and then I press search, and it should now run the filters for me. So it does a help search and the filters for me, and in this case it didn't. Let me try one more time. Not that smart. I'm gonna say exactly $100. Okay, let's see if that works. So always a moving target is freaking. So okay, so let's go to transactions, and this one should have done it. Let me see. Invoices over $1,000. Let's see if the smart search is working. Chooses to embarrass me in a live webinar. So invoices between 1,000 and 5,000. We're gonna call this a work in progress in the QuickBooks world. Then if it doesn't work, okay. So this time it worked. So it's called Smart Search because it's supposed to use AI to turn natural language into a search. I'm not a huge fan of its performance. You saw it live that it's just kind of quirky and tricky. So this time it worked. I typed invoices between 1,000 and 5,000. It worked. Let me try one more time. Bills under $50. Let's see if it works this time. And one of the okay, so I did it here, right here. Less or equals to 50 and bills. Now you don't have to use the natural word search. That's the good thing. You can use the built-in mechanism. So I can say transaction type, bills. I can say amount. I can say less or equal to $100. Click on apply. I can say contact a particular vendor. It's here, a vendor here called balance. So it shows me all the bills under $100 for this particular vendor. Okay, so it's pretty powerful. I can narrow this down to maybe only last year, and it shows me just that. And what's also really cool is you can click on this little export button on the top right and drag to the right here, an Excel file of those transactions that were found on this. So really interesting. Okay, so I want to show you an app called RightTool, and what you also want to do is you want to go into RightTool.app/free. So you go to RightTool app/free, and I'll just show you the website. So we got RightTool.app, and you click on the little link there that says download RightTool for free. You click on that link, and generally, just log out for a second here. So generally, when you first log in, if you never installed it, you click right there where it says Add to Chrome. And by the way, if we have any RightTool users in the chat, go ahead and put that you are RightTool user. So I can speak to at least one RightTool user. That would be kind of fun. And then you click on Add Extension, and what it does is it installs it into your browser. Okay. So once you install RightTool, and this is the free edition that you're seeing, it opens up a navigation bar on the right-hand side of the screen. What that does is it changes the look and feel in QuickBooks, particularly because you're going to be looking at the right side of the screen, not the left side of the screen. That makes things a little bit tricky. Now you can collapse and expand the left navigation bar. If you are in full screen mode with that I talked about earlier, whichever, doesn't matter which screen you're in. Okay, if you're full screen mode, you can actually use RightTool to navigate through QuickBooks completely. That way you don't have to have that left rail and that top search bar in there. We move the search bar to the right. We also can create custom, just like you can do bookmarks in QuickBooks. You have your custom bookmarks. So you click on any of these things, and it takes you straight into the screen that you want. So profit and loss, balance sheet, journal entry. What's different between RightTool and QuickBooks Online is that this navigation bar is consistent. Okay, which means that no matter what client you go into, you're going to have the same exact navigation experience. So you don't have to create a custom menu or a customized menu every time you go into a different client file. So that's kind of the first thing. The second thing is there's an entire database of every screen in QuickBooks in here. If you click on all shortcuts, you can click on any of these sections here, and every single area in QuickBooks you can navigate into, it's available here. So there's reconciliation reports. And if I click on the little star, and they say custom reports, and they say cash flow overview, whatever it is, if I click on the star and I go back into my favorites, it gets added into my favorites. And I can, if I unclick on any of the stars that are there, it removes it from the favorite. Now this 1 to 10, these are keyboard shortcuts. If you hit Control-Alt-1, Control-Alt-2, Control-Alt-3, it takes you straight into that page. So if I'm doing Control-Alt-5, Control-Alt-6. So what's cool about this is I don't have to memorize my keyboard shortcuts. I'm seeing them, the top 10, right there on the screen. And you can change order. So let's say I want Control-Alt-1 to be custom shortcuts. So I move it to the top, and I want balance sheet to be Control-Alt-2. And I want accountant home to be 3, and I want chart of accounts to be 4, whatever it is. So you change the order, and dynamically changes the keyboard shortcut. So with that Control-Alt, you can get anywhere, and you can collapse and expand that. There's a keyboard shortcut to collapse and expand, which is Control-Alt right arrow. And what's really cool is when you add RightTool, Control-Alt left closes that left navigation bar. So if that's me hitting left and right, and you're going crazy with left and right and controlling that. If I do Control-Alt minus, it removes only the rail. So it leaves the search bar in the top, but it removes the rail. So I have total control with a whole bunch of keyboard shortcuts on what I can do. Now we added a cheat sheet. So if you click on this little key icon, it takes you to the website that has the original keyboard shortcuts, and it has a whole bunch of additional keyboard shortcuts. Like for example, you cannot get into a bill with a standard keyboard shortcut. We can with RightTool. So that's Control-Alt-B. That opens up the bill screen. So it's kind of so we're piggybacking on the same thing that QuickBooks has, but we added the entire shortcut as the entire keyboard as a possibility. So when you go into that shortcut section, you see there's a whole bunch of other combination of things that we can do. So you can see all sorts of different things that we can do, and we have a little cheat sheet telling you what are all the things you can press if you want to close and open any of those parts of QuickBooks. I think that once you master the navigation shortcuts, QuickBooks Online gets a lot easier to work with. And that's the most basic things that we have with RightTool. Like that's all included in the free edition. You got keyboard shortcuts. There's also a couple of really cool things under tab management, which allows you to open all the shortcuts in new tabs. So if you are the type of person that likes to work with new tabs, So I'm going to show you what that experience looks like. And I'm just going to close out all the other tabs that are here. Okay, where you want to have multiple tabs open at the same time. So let's say I want to have a balance sheet open. So it opens it in a new tab. Okay, and then there's a specific reason for that. And this is going to mimic something in QuickBooks Desktop called the open window list. A lot of QuickBooks Desktop users, when they move to QuickBooks Online, they're not fans of QuickBooks Online because everything is in one screen and they have to go back or forward. Well, with RightTool, we kind of solve the problem by allowing you to navigate through all these different things and open new tabs. So you see all the new tabs here in the top. Okay, now there's a little button here called Manage Tabs. When you click on Manage Tabs, it keeps tabs, lack of a better term, of all the tabs you have open. So you can actually quickly go to the different areas of QuickBooks that you have by clicking on these tabs. This is something that a lot of people transitioning from desktop to online appreciate. As a matter of fact, this was pretty much the first feature that came out with RightTool 3 years ago. Is I wanted to solve the open window list challenge that we had. Now there's a bunch of other things that it adds. For example, when you scroll down here and you want to create a new account, we added a nifty little new button here so you can create a new account. Anything that's in red, it's something that we added with RightTool. So for example, something typical that happens is I'm looking at my chart of accounts, then I click on Run Report, and then I look at a report, and then I go back into my chart of accounts by clicking back or whatever, and I kind of lose my place in line. What we did with QuickBooks is with RightTools, we added this button called Jump to Last, and it takes you straight into the last thing that you clicked. And this works with reports too. One thing that drives people crazy is they're looking at a report, and then they drill down on any specific thing, okay, and then they click on back, and then they lose their place in line. So with RightTool, we automatically send you back to the last place in line. Okay, so I'll answer any questions. I think we're almost at the hour, the 90-minute section here. So again, it's simply just go to RightTool.app and start with the free edition, and then there is a pro edition. That's a paid edition that adds a whole bunch of batching tools, and I could do a whole section on that if you want to. There's actually over 100 features in RightTool combined. So strongly recommend you start with the free edition and then upgrade whenever you see a need to do that.